Great, well, good morning everyone. Welcome to this session. Well done at 9:15 in the morning. It's always a rush in the morning, isn't it? You're kind of rushing around, coffee, doing your hair, not a problem I have. But I was definitely short on time this morning, so I was rehearsing this in the shower. Forget that image, the good news is I'm fully clothed now. And the other good news is that you can wear any heels you like. You know, I don't have a problem with the shoes that you're wearing. But welcome. We've got half an hour to think through a topic we're calling Changing People for Good, which is at the heart of what I've been doing for some years and love to do. And we're going to open up really the thinking about how do you get people to change what they do? And how does that goal influence the way we design our learning solutions, whatever that is, whether that's face-to-face solution or a technology-led solution. So welcome, I'm Bob Bannister, no relative to Roger. It'd be great if I could say who's Uncle Rog, but I can't. We're from a company called iManage. We're 439, that's kind of the advert over just down here, just down that corridor. If you want to come and see us later, do come and have a chat with us. This is part two. Part one, same title, was at Learning and Skills earlier this year. It's on YouTube, so and this will be as well. So if you want to go back and see part one, which is all about the training needs analysis piece, if you're going to change people for good. So we're moving into the sort of the solution design piece this morning. So first thing I want to say really is please switch on your phones. There's a couple of things here. One, if I can't compete with this little world that's in your pocket, then I'm not doing a very good job. But more than that, I want this to be pretty interactive as you can get when you can't hear what people are saying and we're all sat down in kind of very formal rows. So we're going to use Twitter for that. So if anyone has a Twitter feed, has a Twitter account in the session, then we're going to encourage you to use that. And we can share some of your thinking as we work through the session and try and make it a little bit more interactive rather than just one way from the front. So our Twitter feed you'll need for that is at iManage. Lovely Twitter feed, growing like cropsy at the moment, which is lovely. I really like that. So here we are. What we're thinking about over the next 30 minutes. Our core heart is to change people for good. That's a play on words. So it's about changing people for the better, but changing people long term, so that it's sustainable change with people. And over the years, having had that model and actually putting ourselves on the spot by saying to every one of our clients, don't pay us unless people change, that forced us to work really hard at working out what takes a change, and what does it take to make somebody leave a session or leave a piece of e-learning and do something different. So we kind of codified that, and we're literally sharing our wares with you, how we go about designing solution to get people to change. And there's the next statement here, how we do that. It's summarized in this statement here, that what we're doing when we're creating learning that's going to result in change is we're building an environment that has three critical elements to it. One is challenge, and I'll talk a bit more about that. The other is the space, the environment to think. And thirdly, and most importantly, if we're thinking about changing people, is the environment that will cause and challenge people to act, to do something different. And so that's where we're going in the next half an hour. We're going to explore that concept. And I guess the first thing to ask, a useful thing perhaps to ask, is does learning change people for good? Are we all blindly believing that learning's a good thing, which I hope we do, learning's a good thing and it results in change in people? Well, it does, and there are numerous studies that point to that. In the little handouts, this graph is really tiny, but you can see here the idea from 1816, you've got the primary school and secondary school enrollment numbers up to 2005. And plotted against that, this is the University of Penn in the States who put this particular study out. Birth rates go down, death rates go down. And is that a too big link to make? The more we teach people, the better we get at our healthcare and those sort of things. It's not, is it? It's really not. There's a cause and effect there. If people are more educated, the science improves, the medication improves. So many different things. There are very strong pieces of evidence that link learning with changing people for good. Here's another little study. I like this one. Not least because it's kind of very relatable to you. Less than high school diploma down the bottom here, up to professional degree, doctoral degree at the top. And you've got on this side the average weekly earnings of those people, yeah? And over this side you've got the unemployment rate of those people. That's fascinating. That is, I think 2012 study that, is an absolute sort of a bonus in the back pocket that says learning definitely influences people for good. We believe that, don't we? Otherwise, perhaps wouldn't be here today. The trouble is our organisations don't always believe that when we're saying, can we have a bit more budget? Can we spend a bit more on learning and development? So measuring that can be a key thing. So just to get your brains working, I would like you to just, perhaps in your groups, your pairs, just anyone you're with or somebody you're sitting next to, just ask the question, how would a learning solution, whatever it is, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's something I'm reading, or whether it's e-learning or social learning, how would that look if it was more bicycle-like than bus-like? Okay, so if a learning experience is bus-like, it probably has a characteristic. You can get on the bus, you can doze off a little bit, you can arrive at your destination and get off the bus, and perhaps not even know the journey's happened. How does that differ if we use the metaphor of a bicycle? Okay, so just like a 1 minute quick chat, just in pairs and groups, just how would that learning differ, the design, the look of that learning, whatever the intervention, if it was more bicycle-like than it was bus-like? If you have Twitter, feel free to tweet any answers, at iManage in the Twitter feed somewhere, and it'll come through. Okay, if you've got any tweets, any Twitter feeds in your group, if you can tweet at iManage your thoughts, that will be easier than me trying to listen to you in this noise, because too much rock and roll, I think, that's my problem. Yeah, okay, so Barney, thank you. First tweet in this morning, Barney. Don't know where you are, somewhere here. Barney said, on a bike, you decide where you go, stop and get off. So that's definitely a key idea here, isn't it? That if we're going to create engaging learning experiences, you want an experience where the person actually makes some decisions about it. Even if it's a face-to-face event, even if it's an e-learning event, which can be quite codified, quite ordered and has structured, we want to find ways in which the individual decides when and where they get off. What else? There's other analogy here. On your bike, you're in control, you take ownership, you can go at your own pace. So that's suggesting actually in the learning experience, we want to create that variation, that opportunity for people to make their own decision about how fast they go at different points in the learning, about how much effort they're putting in, and one would hope you'd want to put good effort in. It's much more challenging to ride a bike than take a bus ride, so it takes effort on this right-hand side. Probably another major picture here. Let's see if it comes up on the Twitter feed. It's the direction one. Can't see it there. But, on a bike, you choose where it goes. You choose the route. You own that, and you take it where you want to take it. Now, if that's a useful principle in our learning design, that really alters the way we start to think about the traditional structure of learning design. And I want to just talk a bit more about the challenge of riding a bike versus taking a bus ride, and this idea of challenge in being an important factor in bringing about change. So this is me at 4 years old, okay? 4 years old, I thought you could drive a car at 4 years old. It was easy. I'd see my mum and dad do it. You get in, you wiggle the sticks, you turn the knobs, and you can drive a car. Of course, at 4 years old, I couldn't drive a car. I was in that place of unconscious incompetence, where I didn't know how difficult it was to drive a car. I thought it was easy. I didn't understand it. And I was incompetent. It would have been a scary thing to do, to let me loose in the car. But what happens? Okay, so 17 years old, full head of hair, notice, at 17 years old. You sit down for your first driving lesson, and suddenly your comfort level hits the floor compared to when you're 4 years old. You are very consciously aware that you are incompetent. You recognize that there are so many things you've got to pull together into 1 millisecond. There's gears, there's clutch, there's roadcraft, there's other vehicles, there's highway code, there's signal mirror maneuver, and all of that stuff that your instructors tell you to remember. It's all got to come together like that, and you realize that's a tough call. You can't do it. So you start to learn. There's a gradual process. So time ticks by, hopefully later that year, and maybe sooner than that, hopefully not longer than that, but sometime later that year, you actually go and take a test, you pass that test, and you are set loose on your own in the car. Now, when you take that test, if any of you have had that experience, I guess some of you will have, it is an incredibly conscious experience, isn't it? You're there thinking about driving. You spend your time, you're competent, you even get a certificate and you get your driving license, but you have to concentrate. It is a conscious competence. You think it through, mirror signal maneuver, gear change, signals, speed, all of that stuff. Incredibly conscious. So here I am Tuesday, driving up here with our stuff for the stand, and I don't know that I even thought about driving at all during that experience. Now, some of you who are kind of in safe driving campaigns might give me a frown at the look of that, but we've all been there. You arrive somewhere, you think, where did that journey go? I don't even remember whether I looked at that roundabout. Suddenly I'm here, my head's been in the radio or wherever it may have been. I am totally in a place of unconscious competence. So I've gone from unconscious incompetence, through that experience of recognizing, being conscious that I'm incompetent, through to conscious competence where actually I can do it, but man, have I got to think about it, through to the iteration of doing it 1,000 times, just doing it in your sleep. Completely instinctive, conscious, unconscious competence. Going to get those muddled. I knew I was going to get those muddled at some point. Unconscious competence. Now, here's the thing. I'm talking about challenge being a factor in generating change, in bringing about learning change. This is a challenging model. Coming down that slope from comfort, from thinking I know it, or I know it all, but not really knowing anything about it, down into that place of needing to understand it much more deeply and recognizing there's a problem with my knowledge and my ability. That's a discomfort factor. And that you will relate to in so many situations in your life. If you study something, if you go to a new topic, if you go and learn the guitar or whatever it might be, there is that process when you think, you're going to get the new guitar and you think, I'm going to be the next Brian May or whatever it might be. And then you get there in your room and you start to realize this is harder than I thought it was. And that discomfort level comes down. So this challenge is an integral part of great learning. Here's a bit of science that backs that up. A couple of snippets of some really good science. Sayo and Ormerod. Interesting. This is a fascinating number. They reckon that when you introduce challenge into the learning experience like an interruption, so when somebody's engaged in something, you interrupt them from that flow. They reckon that improves retention of that content by 90%. I mean, that's crazy. That's an astonishing figure. That if you've got somebody learning something, but you interrupt them and take them out of that, you suddenly, and create that challenge, you increase their ability to retain the content. They're not sure why, but the studies have really demonstrated that. They think it might be that when you're interrupted, you park stuff. You kind of put it in your memory a bit more firmly because you know you've got to come back to it. Interesting, but you know, it's definitely an indicator that challenging environments, learning environments, that aren't nice and comfy and cozy actually benefit the learning. What about this second one? Zyganik, so another academic, but found that she could maximize the effect of an interruption on memory by stopping people at the moment they were most engrossed. So that study's arguing that when you get people right in that moment, I'm deep in it, that's the time to take them out of that. And that can have an influence on the way we challenge and bring about different learning within the design process. So let's just take this a little bit further and have a quick discussion again. I'm amazed, 20 minutes has nearly gone by. We've got just over 10 minutes left. I'm going to have to speed this up. So just a moment or two, can we have a think about this question? How can you increase challenge in the learning experience? Whatever intervention, whether it's a piece of video, even if it's a book, how would that book be written? If it's a training session, a face-to-face session, even if it's coaching, if it's e-learning, how could you introduce ideas of challenge into the design? So just a moment or two, quick tweet, quick discussion. Let's see if you come up with some ideas and we'll then build on that.